Election day is neither the beginning nor the end of our work to operate elections. This is the election storage facility for Bloomfield Township. In here, we maintain under lock and key, the only access being my staff, not even the police department or the fire department, have access to this room. We have ballots that are from previous elections that are here. Other security equipment. These, in fact, are security cabinets that we deliver to each precinct, and in them is the tabulator and other key elements to operate the precinct that day. They're locked and tagged so that people, when they show up that morning, know that it's been secured. Our machines are from heart, never been connected to the internet at any time ever. They're then programmed for each election, and then they're tested here to make sure that the ballots are read appropriately by the tabulator itself. And then they're checked again at something called a public accuracy test. We display the accuracy of the tabulator in public in front of the election commission. One of the important tasks that we're doing every day, every month, throughout every year is recruiting and qualifying people to be election workers. Individuals do have to pass a criminal background check in order to qualify. You cannot be a convicted felon. Elections are an amazing collaborative event. They happen only because hundreds of people in the township raised their hand to work the election.
I woke up at about 4:40 this morning to get to the precinct at 6 a.m. and it is now after 9 probably. It's a really long day.
The chairperson advises and kind of administers over the precinct to ensure that it is run as best as possible to the best of my ability.
Making certain that you have the right team for the computers to register the voters, to get the ballots to the voters, assist the voters when they need to, and make certain their votes are counted properly.
The day starts at getting to the precinct at 6 a.m., moving tables as needed.
We get the machines that tabulate the votes and pens and everything else needed to conduct the election so that when the first voter is here at 7 a.m., we're ready to start the process.
Any voters become upset or have questions, we're the people who are called upon to resolve those issues.
Right now at the end of the evening, it's closing and we're waiting to meet with our review board.
All the paperwork that we did, it is going through an audit to make sure that we did our jobs as chairs correctly, that we got all the correct signatures, that we printed all the correct reports.
Checking the seals were there when we got there. They're sealed up properly when we left. Had to verify that we did the job right when we delivered them here, and that they go on now to the actual tallying of the votes. Again, go through a serious process of verification.
We always make sure each precinct has a Republican co-chair and a Democratic co-chair. They come together at the end of the day to the receiving board where all of their materials are checked to ensure that the proper paperwork is filled out. Every step of the way is dedicated to accuracy, not speed, and we take our time to make sure everything is done right.
I've been doing election work for at least 10 years. I trusted the process the whole time. But there was so many conspiracy theories going around like that. I thought, I'm just going to volunteer, be in the arena, do the job, do the work, witness it. It's extremely well run, and everything's really fair, transparent. I kind of say, if you've worked in retail and you have a cash register back in the day, you couldn't leave till your receipts matched the money that went in. And if you couldn't get it to match, you stay there till you do. It's the same process here. Everything has to match.
There's a lot of checks and balances with just numbers. You have the proper list of voters, you have the proper number of vote tallied. That changing one thing by just dumping extra ballots into a ballot box cannot happen without you also changing all the voter names. There's several pieces to the pie that people just ignore when they say there's something going on with fraud.
One person, one vote is everything. We make sure that the person's identity and address and all of that is as it should be, and then we make sure that the ballot gets cast in accordance with state and federal election law.
There's been a lot of changes in election law in the last 4 years. One is early voting, and that's as a result of a constitutional amendment that was passed in 2022 and implemented for the first time in this year. Early voting in Oakland County is countywide, the 9 days prior to Election Day. Absentee voting is more diverse than it's ever been before as far as your options as a voter. So you can return your ballot to the clerk's office directly, you can put it in the mail, postage is prepaid, you can drop it in one of the township drop boxes. During the election period, myself or one of my staff members who are a sworn election worker will pick up the ballots on a daily basis and bring them back to my office where they're reviewed and determine whether we can tabulate them. Starting this year, we were allowed to what's called full processing, which is to, after checking the ballots and their signature to ensure they're approved for tabulating, they are opened, processed, and scanned by our high-speed scanners.
I am processing absentee ballots. It's a huge number that is doing this before the actual day.
turnout in the township is always historically quite high. This election, we had 31,000 voters. 22.5 voted either early voting or absentee.
I process all of the military and overseas ballots. Anyone living abroad that's in the township, they receive their ballot electronically, but they send it back to us. It's on a regular, like a spreadsheet form. So I work alongside a Republican and a Democrat, and we duplicate that ballot onto a ballot that we can process through our tabulators.
A critical thing to know about both early voting and early full processing is that the machines cannot generate results. We don't know the results until after 8 o'clock on election day. They're programmed that way, and no one there is capable of changing that time or that program to generate a result early.
I think this is probably the best job of all because you're actually assisting in making sure that voters' integrity has been, upheld.
Everyone was excited about voting. We had a 96-year-old voter and we had plenty of first-time voters, so it's great to see the generations.
Even though I go to school in Flint, I still just like working in Bloomfield. It's the people that make it. Volunteering with the election, it's just seeing that these people are still human and they're just doing their civic duty.
Some of the noise you're hearing around us these days isn't that great, but when you're in the precinct, you just get a sense of how nice it is to vote and the power it is to vote.
The people that work here are all neighbors. And so in every town throughout Michigan or throughout the United States, it's the people that live here who are processing the ballots.
And ultimately, it's up to my staff and I to make sure that everybody who's entitled to vote gets that chance, and nobody who's not entitled is allowed to vote. And we did that 31,000 times this past November.
But this is the community that we live in, so we have a vested interest in what happens in the community.
People are respectful, the election workers are prepared, and I'm happy to be part of that tradition of secure, smooth elections in Bloomfield Township.
I think everyone should have the right to vote, and I like the fact that I can come out there and am honored with the ability to serve all the people in our township and get to vote properly.